Welcome once again to The Sage, and thank you for being with us. In the episodes before this one, we engaged some very important and articulate, interesting young people on how young people in this country must continue and build on the momentum already on ground and do their bit, starting today, not even tomorrow, to build our great country. In this particular episode, we look at another sector of our nation, this time the creative arts. It is a real pleasure to introduce no other than Mr. Dike Chukwumerije.
If a white man turned and called me nigger, my blood would boil in righteous anger, for the evil of discrimination is clearly established when a white man tries to treat me like rubbish. But if Hausas say Igbos are greedy and crude, and Igbos say Hausas are haughty and rude, and Ijaw says Ishekiri must die today, and Ezra tells Ezilo there's no other way, if Yorubas declare it is Awo or nothing, and we use federal character to share everything, so before you can even smile and tell me welcome, you must first ask me where my father is from. If those who were settlers but now indigents say those who are settlers can't become indigents, and the Constitution says we are all citizens, but local governments keep issuing certificates of origin. If my brother passed JAMB but can't go to uni because he is Steve and he's not Kanuri, and Unimaid has a quota for its catchment area, so he must go back to Benue or wait one more year. If it's okay to say it's not okay to marry someone just because they are Kalabari and that every tribe should have its own side, are we not then practicing apartheid? If you cannot buy land unless you're a native, and cannot find work unless you're a native, and cannot feel safe unless you're a native, how can we then say we're not primitive? Yet you go to London and get their passport, then settle wherever, however you want. You stand there and fight for equality, but come back and start to use ethnicity. I don't get the logic of thinking it's different. To be tribalistic and then to be racist. If you're happy to judge him just hearing his name, whatever you call it, my friend, is the same.
That is beautiful, and that there's so much truth in that, and does indeed demonstrate the power of wisdom and art.
Yeah.
And the talent, behind it that allows us to see clearly.
Yes.
More clearly, biases and things that are wrong.
Absolutely.
That we don't even, many times, we don't even process and think as wrong.
Which is the, if you like, the superpower of a creative, an artist. Because we are not creators, we are simply creatives.
Okay.
Everything that exists already exists. The power of the creative is to see new connections between what exists already, to tease out meaning from the old data. So everybody has come and looked at the same set of data and arrived at conclusion A. The power of the creative is you look at the same set of data and say, you know what? You can actually see B, C, D, E, F from this. Everybody's like, oh, how? So the creative is able to connect things that you didn't think were connected. So many people know racism is bad, but tribalism is not. And then you come and say, hang on, why? What's the difference? That really this thing
still discriminating.
Is the same thing.
Yeah.
It's discrimination. You can call that one foreign discrimination. This one is local discrimination. So you suddenly connect things, dots that people have been looking at but just didn't see how they connect. And that's what it means to expand somebody's mental horizon and suddenly make them go, oh, I see. And that expression is always powerful. I see. It means I may be reading, I may know, but until you see, you don't understand. It's not rooted in you. So the creative makes you see. I'm not telling you, I'm just make you see it. So it's a very powerful function. Creativity is at the heart of nation building. Because when all is said and done, a nation is fiction. A nation is a story. Because a nation is a shared identity. That's what it is. It's a sense that you and I are one. We belong together. And that is always a story. You have to tell a story that creates a sense of shared identity. Because there is always pragmatic, rational, objective reasons why you should feel you are different from me. Even two children from the same womb, twins can differentiate. They can say, look, I'm not you, you are not me. I have my own life, I have my own. To get to
even
people,
identical twins.
Yes, even identical twins. One can say you're taller than me. Therefore, you can find whatever point to differentiate and say, I'm going to go east, you go west. To get two human beings to work together, you have to tell them a story. You have to tell them a story that gets them to see why we belong together. So the mother of these quarrelsome children might start telling them of how they were in the womb together and you ate together, and you tell them stories, and it's the stories that connect them. When people have the same stories, when they feel like they have the same memories, when they feel like they have the same narratives, then they feel like they belong together. So a nation is something you have to tell, you have to speak. A nation is not roads, it's not bridges. It's the story, it's the narrative that you're telling. Nigerians feel so divided because of the narratives that have been passed down the line. When you change those narratives, these same people that feels, I always give the example, look at Europeans. The same Europeans that cannot live in Europe as one country will cross the Atlantic and become Americans. It's the same Italians, it's the same Hungarians, it's the same English, it's the same French. They sail across the Atlantic Ocean, and there's a narrative that allows them to see themselves as Americans. But in Europe, they are Italian, they are French. It's the same people.
German, name it. Yeah.
The only thing that changes is the story you're telling on either side. It's how you're framing the narrative. So there's no, nations are not, they don't drop from the sky. They don't sprout from the earth. They are engineered with narrative and storytelling.
That inspires patriotism
That
and oneness.
inspires patriotism. That inspires you to accept the other as my brother.
I'm going to make you share another one. There's another poem of yours that I think fits in so well about. There's the one about the Iroko and so on and so forth. Do you remember? Do you know the one I'm referring to, where you say,
I think it's the one I call "The Revolution Has No Tribe," I believe. Do you not know that poverty is not an Ijoman?
Yes.
He will not spare the rest of us and afflict
Yes,
only the Isham.
Yes, that
He will
is the
step
one.
across the river and come across the border. So when the drums sound, let everybody answer.
I want you to start it from the beginning.
That is
So
the
we
beginning.
fully
That's the
appreciate.
beginning. My poems always start like conversation. Do you not know that corruption is not from Nekede? You'll not hear that Ife has no dealings with Mother Keke. He'll wake up all of our children at night with hunger. So when the drums sound, let everybody answer. Do you not know that HIV/AIDS is not Kanuri? He'll not spare the rest of us and kill only the Fulani. He will set the land ablaze from the Delta to the Sahara. So when the drums sound, let everybody answer. Do you not know that our enemies have no face? They are indigents of no state. They come from no place. And if this boat capsizes, every one of us will go under. So when the drums sound, let everybody answer. Do not say, I am the Iroko, when the forest is burning. Do not say, I am the Obeche, when the forest is burning. Our differences will not stop us from perishing together. So when the drums sound, I beg, make una answer.
Our differences will not stop us from perishing together.
Absolutely.
I re-echo that.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, when the drum sounds, let us come together. And that is what we're doing at this precise moment in time.
Yeah.
Let us come together and do what needs to be done to make our country a place we can all thrive in.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Do you have one that allows us to see the good things about our country?
There are many things I I do that I believe inspires people to see the good in our country, I often try and begin with simple, uh, sentimental, irrational things about us that are, if you focus on it, will give you, would they evoke a sense of tenderness towards Nigeria and yourself as a Nigerian. So, for instance, the way we talk, coconut head is what you call your dearest. Leave me, Joe, is how to say it best. If you touch me again, it's the language of lovers, laughing and fighting under warm covers. See your mouth. That's how we kiss. That's how we invite the other to kiss. Miss you, Ke, is me telling you my world is incomplete without you. But the mother who loves me will say to my face, I'll kill you, this boy, and have another in your place. And when I make her proud, she'll look up and say, yeah, yeah, with your nose like your dad. Come off a road. So this is Niger talk. This is the way we talk. And it's very endearing. It's very unique to us. You can identify a Nigerian in the global community just from the way they are talking, just from the way they are bending English, breaking English, colonizing the English language, because that's what we did. They tried to colonize us, but we ended up colonizing their language and using it for our purposes. So if you focus on these small things about us, I tell people that Nigeria is a country where you can never get lost. Because as the bus is passing, it will be telling you where it's going. They will be telling you where they're going. You go to London, you have to know how to read, read to find your way around. But here on the road, it will be telling you, massacre, 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 massacre. And these are wonderful things about us. You can't walk down any street in Nigeria without finding something cheap to eat. And it can be a huge issue. I remember when I went to London to do my master's, came out of the library. I walked down a whole road in central London and couldn't find anybody selling biscuits or selling chingom, as we call it in Nigeria, or selling sweet. And I thought to myself, and they say they are a developed country. But this is the eye of the artist, to see what is beautiful about yourself. Because if we are waiting for others to tell us, they may never. It's like having children. It is for you to tell your child what is. If from outside they may say the child, oh, you are short, oh, you are this, but you tell the child, no. You come from a generation of people that have always been, we are proud about it. And you tell them great stories about how your grandfather was 4 foot, but you know what he did. So you take whatever you have and you find the beauty in it. So I can't remember off the top of my head. I mean, I gave you the example of that poem, It's That Coconut Head, where I just talk about the Nigerian way of showing affection. How mothers would say, get out, big head. And you just feel so loved when they do that. Or how, a father would frown and not, but you just feel the love. And that is something about us that is wonderful. There are many other things, so many other things about Nigeria, our sense of humor. No matter how serious the situation, a Nigerian would do it with a sense of humor. We'll be
our ability
jokes
to laugh at ourselves.
At ourselves.
If the social media is full of it,
Yeah.
I think that brought it out so beautifully. Where nothing, no matter how difficult the circumstances, a Nigerian will make a joke.
Make a joke out of it. It's something that many Nigerians who have relocated, find very difficult about the workspace in other countries. I have a friend who was complaining I can't even have a conversation. I can't even gist in the office. I have to just stay on from 8 till 5. What kind of life is this? Now, Nigerians, and it doesn't mean we're not productive. We can be giving you the same amount of outputs, but the office environment will be raucous. This one is gisting, this one is telling this joke. There is a semi-formality about our nature as Nigerians. We're just not an uptight people. And we can and I love that about our country. I love the fact that we always apply rules. A Nigerian, no matter what the rules say, no matter how formal or strict the rules are, Nigerians apply rules with empathy and mercy. So if, the boarding gate is supposed to close at 9 o'clock and a Nigerian sees you running across with your bag, they will hold the door open for you. There are some cultures where 9 o'clock is 9 o'clock, we shut the door. But in Nigeria, I can say, see that woman now, she got rebel, maybe we make space. That kind of thing. I love that about my country. It's something that I couldn't understand about other cultures. That, okay, fine, the baggage limit is 23 kilograms. This is 23.2. Be cool now, just allow it. And it's like, no. And I like the fact that we see, we look, we have some discretion, some humanity in the way we do these things. So there are many things about Nigeria that I've come to appreciate.
Let me add to that. Yeah. I agree with you because, again, like I said, because I've had the privilege, the blessing to have spent a good part of my own working life out of Nigeria, I have come to appreciate being a Nigerian very much. All through it all, I was proud to be a Nigerian and continue to be so because I saw qualities that we had as Nigerians, which many others don't. First of all, we're very proud human beings.
Yeah.
A Nigerian can never be ashamed of being a Nigerian. Out there, we stand tall and we live it. We are also, we come together actually. Any country where you find Nigerians, we maintain our culture. We have meetings. And then this issue of the way we dress. We, I think, perhaps more than any African country, have so much culture and tradition still within the way we conduct ourselves, dress-wise, socially, and so on. And our Nigerians abroad in the diaspora maintain every bit of it. They have meetings, they have community meetings, they have village meetings, all of the things, because we are proud to be Nigerians. We also look at our record abroad. There was a recent publication during the days of a few years ago in the US that showed that the most talented and progressive Africans in the US were actually Nigerians. And it's a record we have everywhere. So there's so many wonderful things about us Nigerians. And we need to begin to see them, like you said, hopefully with the support of many creative artists like you, and live them and believe them and be it, and not spend so much of our time on the trouble with Nigeria.
I like to tell Nigerians that we're named after the River Niger, the Niger River. And in many ways, we share the characteristics of the River Niger. It's a river that we don't, this goes back to the issue of not knowing who we are, knowing what's good about us. So you're named after a river. You never even ask yourself, what is this river, Seth, that I'm named after? Because naming is very important in African culture. Because often it connects you with the energy of whatever it is you were named after. And the River Niger is a very unique river, very, very unique river. It's one of those rivers, one of the few rivers in the world that begins its journey by flowing away from the sea. Rivers tend to flow towards the sea. The River Niger starts its journey. It's born in Guinea, a few kilometers from the Atlantic Ocean, but it flows away from the Atlantic Ocean towards the desert, where it makes a U-turn, a huge U-turn, and then comes back and flows into the sea here in Nigeria. And that tells you that it's an unconventional river. And Nigerians are very unconventional people. That's the root of our creativity. Your strength is always your weakness. That's why Nigerians don't like rules. That's why we're so rule averse and very hard to control. That's because we're very unconventional. We tend to be very creative. And Nigeria, even the area that is today Nigeria, has always, through time, produced high levels of artistic and creative ingenuity. Through time, from Igbo Ukwu to Nok culture, we've been doing it even before we became a country. Because it's the nature of this geophysical area. So it's an unconventional river. We're an unconventional people. Inside that unconventionality is our entrepreneurial spirit. Nigerians are highly entrepreneurial. Absolutely. In fact, other Africans say that if you go to a country and there's no Nigerian there, it means there's no money to be made in that place. Just leave. We're highly entrepreneurial as a people. The River Niger is also a river that pulls so many other rivers to itself. And that's just how Nigerians are also very social. We're also we don't like to go alone. We don't even like to enjoy alone. When we make money, we want it to reach the village. We want it to get to the ground. That's our nature. We're also a highly aspirational people. The River Niger is a live wire of the entire West African region. It is the reason why West Africa is a seat of civilization. All the empires that you know of, all arose in close proximity to the river, because it's a live wire of civilization, the same role that Nigeria plays. So that river that you're named after, you look like it, you resemble it, you carry so many of the attributes of that river. And these are things that need to be articulated. And it is the job of the artist. It is because I'm an artist that I can sit down, look at the map, look at a river, and see how it connects to my country and to my people. That's what I meant about creativity. We're not creators. We just see new meaning in old data. We connect dots that didn't connect before.
Wow.
And it's so critical to nation building.
Wow. I mean, I am sitting here transfixed because you beautifully illustrated what you meant by that the creative artist allows us to see things from a new perspective. I didn't know the River Niger had all these wonderful attributes and that we could find pride in feeling we derive from it. Let me just say that not only that we're excited and inspired, but I think artists have the power also to connect us to the spiritual.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because then we realize that our very existence here, the attributes that make us, come from things so interconnected with nature and the universe.
Absolutely.
And it is the artists that often can tap into that, put it in a language in which we can all understand and indeed feel and be enriched from. I think that's a wonderful example of the power of creativity, of the creative artist. And so while it's so evident in what you've just demonstrated in our beautiful discussion on this show, what about other artists you think need to be part of this, and examples of how they can indeed begin to help us change our country's narrative and live the true narrative of this country?
What I like to say to artists, because when you ask me about other artists, you're stepping into very contentious waters. There are two broad schools of thought, about the role of the creative in society. There is a school of thought that we call the art for art's sake school of thought. That, look, the creative owes no social obligation to anybody, has no higher social calling, and you're free to use your creativity however you want. If you want to, whatever issues you want to talk about, whether they have social relevance or not, that's fine. And it's a valid way of thinking. But there's a school of thought of art for social change, which I belong to, that, the creative is not an alien. The creative is a human being living in a certain society. And you cannot be writing about, flowers and the sunrise when there's a fire raging outside your window and children are dying of malnutrition, or just writing on things that have absolutely no connection and you don't care about your society. Now, it's important for people to follow their intuition, your deep inner feelings about issues, because sometimes you can focus on an issue that everybody around you thinks is absolutely not relevant to your society now. But down the road, the importance of that issue becomes evident. Just like, let's take Isaac Newton, for instance. You're sitting under a tree, as we hear, and the apple falls down, and you become obsessed with the idea of why did the apple fall down and not up, and you're living in a society where people are trying to eke out a living from farming and fishing, and I'm sure somebody must have told him, what is the use of this line of inquiry about why apples are falling down, but down the road, that idea has revolutionized the whole world. So I'm always very careful about imposing on anybody the obligation to focus on any particular issue. What I like to encourage everybody is to follow your intuition, because your intuition, to me, is God's voice in you. God put you on this earth for a purpose. He gave you a purpose, a reason. And everything God created has a purpose and adds something to the bigger picture. So if you were born here in Nigeria, it's not an accident. And if you were given a particular obsession, a particular issue keeps troubling you, it's not, there's a reason why God has done that. So I encourage artists more to focus on the intuition. What I try and discourage them from doing is to become obsessed only with performing art that brings you reward in terms of fame and fortune immediately. Don't be so quick to commercialize your art. Realize that art is a calling, whether you like it or not, it's a calling. And the way to realize the full measure of that calling is to be true to your intuition. I understand that you have to eat and sometimes you have to do things to feed, but don't forget the deeper aspects of your calling. And I believe that if artists follow their intuition, they will produce art that has relevance to their society. So I don't dictate to you that you must write about corruption. You must writing about a flower, if it's coming from your intuition, maybe what ends up solving the issue of corruption and bribery, because you may help to elevate the sense of beauty. And underneath this corruption, at the roots of this corruption, at the roots of this way we behave, may just be that we don't have a sense of beauty, a sense of appreciation of order in the world. And somebody can give us that sense simply by articulating what a flower is, or a bee hopping from flower to flower. And this is how arts help to revolutionize other societies, because it helps to awaken a higher sense, a higher appreciation of ideals, of order, of precision, of beauty, of connection, of balance. And when people have this higher sense of appreciation of these values, it begins to translate in how they deal and relate with one another. So this is always what I try and advise other artists. Be true to your intuition, because that's what has brought me to where I am. I remember that when I began to write poems about Nigeria and the politics, it was at variance with what everybody else was doing. Everybody was writing about the moon and the stars and falling in love. And what was stirring within me was poverty and corruption. So I just followed my own intuition. And then when I found also that, unlike most other people, whenever I came to the subject of Nigeria, what arose within me was tenderness and affection and love, not anger, not bitterness, not hatred. And yet, when you write poetry on social issues, the culture is to be angry. Is the angry poet, so you're constantly bashing. But I found within me love and tenderness, and I had to be true to that. And I got a lot of pushback. I got people saying to me, why are you saying all these nice things about Nigeria? You're just being sentimental. You're not being real. You're not looking at the issue, But do you have the courage of your conviction as a creative? Because if you do, you'll find that ultimately, and this applies not just to creatives, but to every human being, if you have the courage to follow the purpose that God puts in your heart, you will find that ultimately you will produce things that will be helpful to your society.